The Great War, also known as World War I, was a global conflict that lasted from 1914 to 1918. It involved many of the world's major powers, divided into two opposing alliances: the Allies, primarily comprised of France, Russia, and the United Kingdom, and the Central Powers, primarily comprised of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. The war was sparked by the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary by a Serbian nationalist in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914. The Great War was characterized by trench warfare, mass casualties, and the use of new and improved weapons of war, including machine guns, chemical warfare, and aircrafts. The vast majority of the fighting took place in Europe, although battles were also fought in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. The war resulted in the deaths of approximately 16 million people, including both military personnel and civilians, and another 20 million people were injured. One of the key factors that led to the outbreak of the Great War was the complex system of alliances and treaties between the major powers of Europe. At the time, the continent was divided into two armed camps, each of which had entered into a series of treaties with one another, guaranteeing military support in the event of an attack. This created a delicate balance of power, and when Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia in July 1914, the system of treaties brought in the other major powers and quickly escalated into a full-blown global conflict. The war also had far-reaching consequences beyond the casualties and destruction caused by the fighting. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, officially ended the war and imposed heavy reparations on Germany. This contributed to the economic instability and resentment in the country, which in turn led to the rise of the Nazi Party, and the eventual outbreak of World War II. The Great War also marked the beginning of the decline of the European domination of the world. The cost of the war, and the devastation it caused, weakened many European countries, while the United States emerged as a new economic and military power. The war also resulted in the collapse of several empires, including the German, Russian, and Austro-Hungarian empires, and paved the way for the creation of new nations and the redrawing of national borders. Another significant impact of the Great War was the loss of innocence and the disillusionment of many people with the values and ideals of the time. Before the war, many people had believed in the idea of progress and the innate goodness of humanity. However, the brutal and senseless slaughter of millions of people challenged these beliefs and led to a widespread sense of cynicism and pessimism. The war also had a profound impact on the arts and literature of the time. Many writers, artists, and musicians were inspired by the conflict and produced works that reflected the experiences and emotions of those who lived through it. Some of the most famous works of the time include Wilfred Owen's poem Dulce et Decorum Est, Ernest Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms, and Pablo Picasso's painting Guernica. The Great War had a profound and lasting impact on the world economy. The war caused massive physical destruction and disrupted trade, leading to a decline in economic activity in many countries. The cost of the war was also staggering, with governments spending huge sums of money to finance the fighting and to provide for the needs of their citizens. This led to the inflation of prices, which in turn led to a decline in the standard of living for many people. The economic impact of the war was felt most acutely in Europe, where many countries were left with large debt burdens and a shattered infrastructure. The Treaty of Versailles, which officially ended the war, imposed heavy reparations on Germany, further weakening the country's economy and contributing to the rise of the Nazi Party. The economic instability of the time also led to the widespread growth of government intervention in the economy, as governments sought to manage the effects of the war and the economic crisis that followed. The Central Powers, also known as the Central Empires, was one of the two main coalitions that fought in World War I, 1914 to 1918. It consisted of the German Empire, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and the Kingdom of Bulgaria, and was also known as the Quadruple Alliance. The Allies had much more potential wealth they could spend on the war. One estimate, using 1913 US dollars, is that the Allies spent $147 billion on the war and the Central Powers only $61 billion, but Germany concentrates the largest industrial conglomerate in the Rhineland region. Among the Allies, Britain and its empire spent $47 billion and the US $27 billion. America joined after the war started, while among the Central Powers, Germany spent $45 billion. The war also had a significant impact on international trade. The disruption of shipping lanes and the destruction of ports and other infrastructure made it difficult for goods to be transported from one country to another. This led to a decline in the volume of international trade, which in turn led to a decline in economic activity in many countries. The decline in trade was particularly pronounced in Europe, where many countries were left with large surpluses of goods that could not be sold and a shortage of goods that were in demand. The war also had a significant impact on the financial markets. The decline in economic activity, and the decline in the volume of international trade led to a decline in the demand for financial assets, such as stocks and bonds. This in turn led to a decline in the prices of these assets, which had a devastating effect on the savings of many people. In addition, the decline in the demand for financial assets made it more difficult for companies to raise capital, which in turn led to a decline in investment and economic growth. Despite the negative impact of the war on the world economy, there were also some positive effects. For example, the war led to the development of new industries and technologies, such as the aviation and chemical industries. The increased demand for goods during the war also led to a temporary boost in economic activity in some countries, which helped to stimulate economic growth. In addition, the war led to the creation of new international organizations, such as the League of Nations and the International Monetary Fund, which helped to promote cooperation and stability in the world economy. The Great War had a profound and lasting impact on the world economy. The war caused massive physical destruction, disrupted trade, and led to a decline in economic activity in many countries. The cost of the war was also staggering, and the decline in the demand for financial assets had a devastating effect on the savings of many people. Despite these negative effects, the war also led to the development of new industries and technologies, a temporary boost in economic activity in some countries, and the creation of new international organizations that helped to promote cooperation and stability in the world economy. This is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice. The information provided is not intended to be a substitute for professional financial advice. Please consult a financial professional before making any financial decisions. Please comment, like and subscribe.